the social critics with the ruling through the economy.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned the mark of the beast. It's just in the past 6 years, I've heard lots of different things that could be the mark of the beast. The first one being the COVID shot.
Yeah.
The next one I've always heard is digital currency. Another one could be Neuralink.
Yeah.
And so what I want to ask is, this is, what are people supposed to do? Let's say that they do usher in the new digital currency, and I'm sure it won't appear to be the mark of the beast. But maybe it becomes more obvious, as time goes on with people holding out.
Excuse me, we're going to see infrastructure. God's going to basically allow some type of war or something that's going to happen to such a degree that, it's going to be brutal even for us who are good and who are prepped and ready for it and all of that. It's going to be brutal for everybody.
When you say, I can't remember how you said it, but you said it sounded like you were saying the stage is kind of set. Yeah, almost everything that's happened needs to happen. What has happened that needed to happen, and what still needs to happen?
Well, before the Antichrist comes, one of the things that we know from the fathers of the church is that there will be a worldwide implosion of people's morality. So, which we've seen, right? So that's happened since the 1950s. There's been an implosion where people just aren't following the laws of God and or the natural law in any sense of the term. So we have that. The other part of it is, again, is the unification of the worldwide economies, because he has to be able to basically control people en masse. The other thing is it has to be something that the people that are alive, that in order to survive, you have to be able to plug into that economy in some fashion. That's why they talk about the mark of the beast. Well, we're almost there, where they could literally just decide, look, unless you're going to sign off on certain things, you're not going to have access to the digital currency that we're going to enact worldwide, and therefore, because that's how we could rule it. At least that's my opinion. I think that's one of the ways how he's going to control people is through digital currencies, and he's going to just shut people off, and that's how they'll be able to basically starve people out if they're unwilling to sign off on the Antichrist's rules. So it's going to be those kinds of things have, as I mentioned, have come into play.
So we're talking like social credit score.
Yeah, that's right. Among other things. The other thing is, too, is we also know that the Catholic Church specifically will have to be at a state where it would have to have gone through a prior weakening crisis, and then it will resurge, and then right before the Antichrist comes, the morals of people will implode, they say, in such a rapid fashion to where this last 50 years will make our heads spin. It'll be that much more rapid. So there's some prophecies that have been fulfilled and some of them that haven't quite been.
When you say good people, I mean, is that everybody? Everybody will be under the influence?
Well, they say that the Antichrist will be so charismatic, and it will be that unless a person has specific graces from God, you're going to easily get sucked into into what he teaches and what he professes, which of course is going to be a rejection of Christ, and he will set himself up as the Messiah, but it'll be a political type of a thing. The other thing that has to happen too once he shows up, of course, the two prophets that are in heaven, Elijah and Enoch have to return. They're put to death. And so because they actually return and preach against him. So those types of things have to happen before Christ actually returns and finally puts him to death.
Do we know what names they'll use?
We don't. Other than, you mean is Elijah and Enoch? It'll be clear who they are.
What about the temple?
According to the fathers of the church, at least the ones that I've read, they said the temple will never be rebuilt. And it will never be rebuilt. And the reason being is because, first of all, Julian the Apostate tried to rebuild it, and it was destroyed in the process. Christ actually put an end to the Jewish sacrifice on purpose, because the Jewish sacrifice in the Old Testament was a lead-up or a prefigurement of Christ. And so he gave them one generation in order for them to convert to Christianity. And when they didn't, he put an end end their sacrifice. So technically speaking, there hasn't been practicing Jews in 2,000 years because the temple hasn't been around. They haven't been able to offer sacrifice. Doesn't mean that they don't pray and things of that sort, but they haven't been able to enact their primary religious duties, which is to offer sacrifice. Plus, their Levitic line, which is their priestly line, was destroyed. So, but then, in the difficulty is people tend to misinterpret the book of Daniel, which says, when the abomination of desolation takes its seat in the temple. What they don't realize is that is not a reference to the Jewish temple. That's where the Protestants are getting it wrong. So a lot of the Protestants are thinking, oh, well let's help the Jews rebuild the temple, and then that will usher in, because Christ is going to return, after they think the temple is going to be rebuilt. And then as a result of that, well, I should say the temple has to be rebuilt in order for the Antichrist to put himself in there. So let's do that so that the Antichrist will come, and then that means that Christ will come, and that's kind of their reasoning behind it. Well, first of all, just getting through the years of the Antichrist is going to be brutal, so I wouldn't be pushing that. But the fathers of the church are very clear that it'll never be rebuilt, and that the reference to the abomination of desolation taking its seat in the temple is actually a reference to the Catholic Church. That's what the fathers say it's a reference to. That there's going to be some way in which the situation in the church will become compromised to such a degree. It doesn't mean that people have to note it, but its essential elements will still remain intact. But that